Season 2 of Edison format is upon us, and of course, the metagame has shaken up pretty dramatically. So there's a lot of people out there doing their like tier lists and metagame discussions at this in this sort of time period, like preseason but post first event. It's kind of a weird thing we got going on because of Deck Devastators, but Ribbit 1 hasn't happened yet. Anyway, I've watched a lot of them. I agree with some people's opinions, disagree with others, so I figured I would just make my version, set the record straight, because of course my opinions are smarter and better than everyone else's. Now, someone last time I did one of these suggested that I include deck lists, which I thought was a really good idea, so I'm going to be doing that in this video. Most of the deck lists I got just sort of downloaded from topping lists, so keep that in mind. And let me just real quick explain the tiers as well. We got 6 tiers here. So in place of S tier, we have constantly tops. I mean, self-explanatory. We're talking about decks that are just in maybe not every top cut, but most, more than half. Reasonable chance of topping. This is more it's kind of arbitrary. Decks that have a 10 to 30% chance of being a top cut. These are decks that frequently top, but you wouldn't bet your life that they would top a given event. Carpet. I made a tier for my own decks, so I don't know how much of this I'm going to explain later or whatever, but I felt like most of my decks are pretty close together in terms of power, and they all operate in the zone that I would put between B and A tier of they're really finicky to pilot, but if you play them optimally, maybe they're more reasonable chance of topping. But for the median Edison player, it's probably more accurate to call them a B tier deck. And then also, I don't want to gas them up too much, just to I don't want to seem too self-important. So putting them in A tier might be a bit of a stretch. So I just decided to fit this compromise tier in. So that's where those are going. Bad conversion rate. Not every deck in here is going to be characterized by having a bad conversion rate, but I feel like that's going to be the sort of level we're talking about here of decks that they're represented pretty well, but they only top 2-3 times a year or something. I don't know how many decks are like that, but that's kind of going to be the baseline for what this tier is. Mid, this is just regular bad. In general, I think people exaggerate the differences between the power level of decks in Edison format. So I don't want to call things bad or whatnot, because I think pretty much anything on here maybe could hypothetically top at the very least. But these are sort of towards the bad end, and this is never tops as decks that just have not topped in the past year. So yeah, I think the tiers are pretty easy to understand. Now let's get started. So first off, we have Well Zombies. So let's look at that deck. Sometimes just referred to as Welladad, Well Zombie. I don't know what the hell people are calling this. There was this whole thing about what the names of the decks counted as, but I don't want to get into that. This is a list that topped. I think this deck is very good. I do not think it is good as Diva Zombie. I think the Diva package is just far better, given that it is much smaller and a one-card starter that lets you go full combo with Goblin Zombie on the field. Whereas the Krebon's engine it has some benefits. Krebon's in itself is an okay card to be bricked on, I guess, compared to Diva. You can have bigger ceiling late game plays with Well and whatnot. And there are more synergies with the dark stuff and just Krebon's being a dark monster. You can get off Tomato, and Teleport can occasionally be a better card as well. But I just don't think it's quite as good as Diva Zombies. Now, that being said, I think this is still a very good deck. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it in A tier. Or, I'm getting confused with my own tier names, but the tier that would correspond to A tier, reasonable chance of topping. I think that's about where this deck goes. I think Zombies are just a crazy deck, and I mean, you would have to believe that Krebon's is just such a dog shit card. If you believe that it being in this deck brings this down from S tier, a whole multiple tiers. So I'm gonna put it here. I think that's a reasonable place for it. It'll probably end up high in this tier, honestly. I just think Zombies are crazy. All right, so on to Blackwings. Let's go look at a Blackwing deck. Here we go. So I believe this is Hydra's first place list from Peak of the Week 2. Yeah, really clean list, by the way. But it's Blackwings. Blackwings just always going to be an S tier deck in Edison format. The cards are just very ahead of their time in terms of just being like these overpowered archetypal sort of things that just do so much in combination with one another. I mean, this deck is just, it's crazy. It was really, really insanely dominant at a point about 6 months ago last year. It's not, it's died down a bit since then, but it's still just like always, two of them in top cut, two of them, three of them in top cut every tournament. So this deck it's the most represented deck. It's the deck with the most tops, so it's got to go in S. One way or another, it has to go in S. Next up, we have Pure Lightsworn. So let's go find that deck list. Oh my god, DB. Okay, there we go. So Pure Lightsworn, this is like a stocked down deck for me, I think. This deck hasn't done jack shit in like months. I think I'm gonna get into this later, but I think the Christia like Lightsworn deck is far better. I think that this older version has gotten kind of outpaced by power creep. It's just not quite what it was before. This deck used to like top pretty often, like a year ago, and it has just very much fallen off. So I'm gonna put Lightsworn. I still think it's not bad, right? So I just don't think it can go in A anymore, though, or reasonable chance of topping. Man, I need to get my tier list names right here. I'm gonna put it here. It's probably like the top of this tier. Maybe it's even in this tier. Yo, no joke. What if we just put Lightsworn in Carpath tier? I think that's fun. Let's put it there. Because, like, the deck's honestly, like, a lot more skillful than you would think. There is, like, the casino aspect to it. But if you aren't playing, like, really well, I don't know that you're topping with this. I think there's certain people on my team, like Joy Boy and Maple, that are very good Lightsworn players that can, like, make it work. So, yeah, this might actually be a good spot for it. Let's leave it here. Who says the Carpath tier only has to be for Carpath decks, huh? Christia Sworn. I did mention that I thought this deck was better. I was really skeptical of this deck when it first came out, honestly. I thought, like, man, this is just Lightsworn, but it's, like, high rollier, it's brickier, it's sackier. But I've been proven pretty wrong, I think, as the format has progressed. This deck is, in fact, more consistent, I think, than regular Lightsworn. I think Orange Light is a crazy card in here. Just giving you, like, having, like, the hand trap and being able to disrupt that way, I think is very beneficial for Lightsworn. Beckoning Light is so insane in this deck compared to regular Lightsworn. Like, all the crazy nonsense you can accomplish with that card. I think the Fairy package lends itself really well in here. Christia is just a crazy boss monster. The ceiling is higher. Like, you've got, like, the hamsters and stuff. I just think this deck is really, really good. I've been very impressed by the gameplay I've seen of it. It actually just, like, pulls off its ceiling a lot more often than you would think, and it is super scary to play against this deck. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this deck in reasonable chance of topping. I think even above Well Zombie. These are probably like the higher ones in this tier. We'll see, but I think this is a very, very good deck, honestly. All right, so next up we just got all the fairy ones in a row, huh? So regular fairy. Let's find that. Regular fairy. This deck's still really good. I don't know if it's probably is it the best version of fairy? I feel like they're all around the same level, honestly. It's really hard to say for me whether one of the fairy decks is better than the other. I think they accomplish different things. And this one is like the hard counter Blackwings version, and it definitely does that job pretty well. So as to where it's got to be at least in reasonable chance of topping, right? It might even be in constantly tops. I think they're all so close. Like, it's just hard for me to say. Maybe I'm just gonna put all the fairy decks right next to each other in like the top of this tier or something. I feel like that's more than fair. So speaking of fairy decks, we got the last one here, which is Chaos Fairy. This is the deck that I won Deck Devastators 3 with. This deck really surprised me. I did not expect to win that event. it performed a lot better than I suspected that it would. I think there's a lot of really good stuff going on in here. It's a very good deck in terms of like compensating for the weaknesses of regular fairy, and maybe sort of sacrificing some of the strengths. I think that's about like my evaluation of it. I think it still wins the Blackwing matchup, but it does better against frogs and like doesn't get blown out by a limb or deck dev as much because of the decree and stuff. And yeah, I just think it's a really tight, really solid list. I think I got this one. I pretty much nailed this list in my opinion. So as I mentioned though, we're just gonna put it up here. I'll be humble and put mine lowest. I think probably the other fairy decks are better. I don't know. I don't know for sure if they're better. I think they're all about the same. They're all about the so just like ignore the order of the fairies. We'll just say they're all like fairies are all just like top of this tier. I think that's a good place to put them. Neopatient Heroes. Oh man, this is probably my most like hated deck. I think people just think this deck is dog shit, and it might be my worst deck. But like I said, I don't think there's much of a difference between the power level of my decks. I think they're all around the same level. So, this is the list. I think it is probably not as good as regular Diva Hero. I think it's like a version of. It's not strictly worse. I think there is a reason to play it. It's like an okay meta call in certain situations. If the format is Blackwing heavier, like it was very recently, then you should probably just play regular Diva Hero. But there are times when I could see wanting to play this. I think that it does do one thing really well, which it incorporates the dark package like a lot better than regular Diva Hero does. I feel like the dark package is super awkward in regular Diva Hero. Sometimes I prefer like maybe just to not even play it, but in general, I think if we want to put this at like the bottom of Carpath tier, I feel like that's about where I'd be willing to throw it. There's a reasonable argument that it's my worst deck, but like not by much. I don't think I feel like I could top with this deck again. Honestly, I could like just show up and top an event with it. Maybe that's like too cocky or whatnot, but I just don't feel it. When I play it, it feels pretty good usually. I don't know. I go back and visit my old decks sometimes, and usually they feel like they've aged well to me. So I don't know. It's no different with this deck for me, but to appease the haters, I'll put it in the bottom of Carpath tier. All right, Vayu Turbo. Vayu Turbo become a staple of the format, pioneered by James Ark. Of course, this is Lord Voldemort's first place list from Ribbit 5. I don't even remember, but I really like his list a lot. I like the triple main deck Dust Tornado. I like the hamsters. I like this random one-off Spirit Reaper. That shit can like randomly win games. Triple D Prison is maybe a little bit dated at this point. I'm not entirely sure, but really solid, really good list. This deck plays Blackwing cards, but it's just like a completely different sort of play style from Blackwings. It's this really aggro sort of dark turbo mill deck. I think this deck's cool. Deck definitely takes a lot of skill to play. That being said, I'm kind of lower on it than I was before. I think it's definitely an S tier deck, like no doubt. I think it might be the most overrated S tier deck in terms of overrated in the sense that people consider this to be like the second best after Blackwings, or like top 2 best decks, or even top number 1 best deck. And I just don't think it's quite there. I think the other decks in S tier are generally better than this deck. Just like a bit more unfair and crazy. And we're going to get to talking about some of those decks, but I think like 4th is about where I would have Vayu overall. We'll see where we end up. Okay, Hero Beat. Let's look at a Hero Beat list, shall we? Here we go. So this is a deck that I think is overrated as well. I think in general, stun strategies just really suffer in Edison format because there's a lot of these like best decks. Pretty much all of the S tier decks in Edison format just do not give a crap about like stun decks. You know, they just like crap on this sort of play style in general. And I don't know. It's like a combination of Royal Oppression being legal and Blackwings being the best deck that like shape the format in this way. So then again, Hero Beat actually had a pretty good year last year, but it's gotten like worse in like the recent meta for sure. Like Hero Beat has not had like good tournament performances to speak of recently. I mean, there's been a couple, right? Some of like the hybrid builds actually topped an event recently, but that's a different deck that we're going to talk about later. In terms of like this sort of older, stunnier version that we're talking about here, man, I don't know. It's honestly hard to say. I feel like bad conversion rates being kind of mean because this deck's conversion rate hasn't fallen off till the last few months. Maybe it's just like Carpath tier, honestly. Yo, well, the Carpath tier is like majority not Carpath. Have we noticed that? That's pretty neat. Yeah, I just can't really decide between this tier and that tier for Hero Beat, so I feel like throwing it in Carpath tier is probably fine. The deck's like kind of boring, but it's pretty interactive. Yeah, I'd say this is a good spot for it, honestly. It's not as good as these decks. Like when I'm looking at these decks in this tier, I feel like every one of these is just like solidly above Hero Beat. So I feel like throwing it one tier below that is perfectly fair. Now we have Alias standing in front of a brick wall, so we know what that means, right? We're talking about Diva Hero Beat. This cracked me up, by the way. Deck Devastators, my opinion on this deck was completely vindicated because there was like, well, actually, this is a build with only one Gilman. Man, even one Gilman, Legacy of Yada, far more consistent than the median Diva Hero Beat build out there. But anyway, there were like three types of hero decks, right? There were Diva Hero, there was Hero Beat, like the traditional Hero Beat, and there was Diva Hero Beat. And Diva Hero had a positive win rate. Hero Beat had like a slightly negative win rate, but it was like respectable, you know. And then this like hybrid version had like an 18% win rate or just something abysmal. It just completely scrubbed out. I thought it was I just could not get enough of that. So I've talked before about why I think this deck sucks. I think it's just like it plays every Garnet between Diva Hero and Hero Beat and just like maximizes the problems with both builds. I made a video earlier where I talked about why I didn't like this deck, so just like go watch that video and I'll explain it more. But yeah, I don't think this deck's that good. I'm gonna put it a full tier below regular Hero Beat. I think it's garbage. And yeah, that's all I got to say on that one. Diva Hero, I consider this to be the best hero deck. So here we have a True Heroes legendary list featuring Penguin Soldier. I think he actually cut this card, but you know, still just like traditional hero, traditional Diva Hero, whatever you want to call it. I think this deck's really good. I hope we see this deck come back to the meta. I think it's very solid. It's really good against Blackwings. It's just really good in general. It does so many really good things. So I'm a big fan of Diva Hero. I think it's a really cool deck in addition to all that stuff. So glad to see it back in the meta. I do think it's very good. It's probably an A tier for me. I'll even put it. Is it? The zombie deck might be better, but Ab-Zero is an insane boss monster, though. I don't think it's as good as Fairies. I do think Fairies is a better deck. I think Fairies is definitive top of this tier. I don't think I'm putting anything above Fairies. So we'll put it here for now. I might like switch up the orders later. I don't know. I'm kind of undecided on that, but I think it's a fine spot for it. KFC, I'll put it top of Carpath tier. I think that's... Oh, wait, we got to show you the deck list. I've shown the deck list for this in a couple of videos recently. Well, I don't know. This is the exact like deck list I've been on lately, so just feast your eyes. That's what it is. I haven't played a whole lot of this deck lately. I ended up on this. I think it's a pretty good deck. So top of Carpath tier. That's all the comments I really got to say about that. Amaryllis. Okay, so another one of my decks. Here we go. This is my current list. I'm really liking Decree in here. I think the main reason that people put this deck lower than it belongs, if they do that, which some people put this deck higher than it belongs, honestly, but the reason there are people who sleep on this is because they don't play Volcanic Counter, and the reason they don't play Volcanic Counter is because they haven't thought of the fact that you can crash your monsters. I don't know. This is maybe just like not the case, but maybe just people haven't even like played the deck. But the build with Volcanic Counter is the one we're talking about. Okay, like that deck is very good. Every time I go back and play it, it just feels crazy to me. Feels like I can at least potentially win like any matchup. Now, without Volcanic Counter, I think there's like just too many garbage mashups for the deck. It just like is a weird plant good stuff pile that loses to like certain, it just loses hard to like several other major meta decks. But I think the Volcanic Counter version feels like really strong to me, honestly. I might even put it. Do I put it above KFC? I might even put it above KFC. This deck, like, I don't play it often, but when I play it, it feels nuts. Like, I think there's a lot of good shit going on in this deck. People need to get back on this, get woke on Amaryllis. The technology is pretty good. I think this deck aged really well, so I'm going to put it here, honestly. I think it might even be better than KFC. Yeah. All right, next up we got Quick Draw. Quick Draw, fan favorite deck, and probably one of my favorite decks as well. I think this deck's really solid. I'm of course referring to like any version of the build that plays Volcanic Shell and Decree. I think if it's 2023 and you aren't playing these two cards in your Quick Draw deck, there's something wrong with you. Now, you don't necessarily have to play like the full Volcanic package. I'll do it. I do like it. I definitely prefer it to like stuff like Lone Fire Titanial. I think that is definitely better off on the side, like you see here in Owlscare's build. I'm a big fan of Quick Draw. I think it is probably at least a little bit underrated. It's kind of like Hero Beat almost, where it used to top with relative frequency. It's kind of fallen off a little bit from that point. That being said, I think the deck is really good. It just struggles with the fact that Blackwing is like its worst matchup, and that's like a fifth of the meta right there. Now, the Blackwing matchup is not as bad as everyone says it is, especially if you're on Decree. I think Decree is just an insane card in the current meta. I'm going to throw this deck... Yo, is this another Carpath tier? I feel like it could be. Like, it really does kind of belong here. It's just like... it is a lot like these other decks now that I think about it. I think it's the best one in this tier, though. I think it is better than all of these. Maybe not a lot better, but it is definitively better, I would say. So I think that's a good spot for Quick Draw. I think that's about where most people would probably evaluate Quick Draw at, to be completely honest. So yeah, that's where I'm putting it. Okay, next up we have Gladiator Beast. Let's look at a deck list. So this is like Yomera's version. He's not on Test Tigers or anything, but yeah, we're just lumping them all together, you know, just every Glad deck. So they're not too different. It's like the definitive bad conversion rate deck. It's a deck that's out there. A good portion of people play it, and it tops about 3 times a year. Yeah, not too much to say about it. I notoriously hate this deck, but I think that I'm trying not to be too unfair here. I really think that's about where it belongs, to be honest. I think kind of like Quick Draw, it struggles a lot with Blackwings being the best deck, but it can just struggle a lot in like random circumstances against a bunch of decks if they have answers for you and stuff. So I think that the game plan is just super fragile and super linear. Yeah, that's kind of my evaluation of Glads. I mean, if I just wanted to hate on Glads, I would put it down here. I think this is like a full tier higher than where I put it before. So really, this is actually an upgrade for Glads in my mind. But yeah, I'm going to put it here, probably below the hybrid Diva Hero beat thing. I think that deck's maybe a little bit better than Glads. It definitely has a good head-to-head matchup, but obviously that's not what we're evaluating. Yeah, I think this is a fine place to put it. Turbo. Do we have another addition to Carpath here? No, wait. Come on, let's put it up here. We can't let the Carpath tier grow too big. That's just all kinds of wrong. It can't be, well, it's already like, it's half and half. It can't be majority non-Carpath. I think Turbo is like the best, what Fraser calls these like casino decks. For those of you who aren't already subscribed to him, go check out the I'm Nerd podcast channel. I'll link it in the description. Been watching a lot of his videos, really enjoy it. Does good Edison content. But yeah, he's like coined this term casino deck that, well, I don't know if he invented the term, but he uses it a lot. And I think it's a pretty good descriptor. Turbo's like the best one of these. Oh wait, we gotta look at a list. Oh, I hope I haven't like forgotten to show someone a deck list for some, or to show everyone a deck list for one of these. I hope I showed them all so far. But yeah, this is like a super clean Turbo list. This is Cameron's list. from Peak of the Beak 2, which she like net decked off Hydro, I believe. And Hydro is like the pioneer of this deck, so makes sense. I think this build is absolutely optimal. Just beautiful to look at. People really hate this deck. I don't hate it so much. I just think it's kind of eh. You know, you don't like playing against it, but there's a lot of things I don't like playing against more than this. The deck is solid for sure. Like, it's definitely been shown that you can play with this deck even when you don't draw the combo, and then when you do draw the combo, you just like win the game. So the deck's pretty crazy. It'll probably always be like in the like capable of topping tier, just because of how nuts its ceiling is. And you know, if someone shows up and hits that ceiling and they know how to play the deck, then they're always going to be able to top. So I think probably bottom of this tier, but definitely in the reasonable chance of topping tier. I think that's perfectly fine for Turbo. All right, next up we got Flambeau. We're going to be looking here. This is my teammate Soul's Manic's list. I think it's pretty solid. I think that the Flambeau deck is... People used to think this deck sucked, and it doesn't suck. That being said, it's not that great. I don't know. I don't want to talk too much crap on this deck, because I do think it is, like, situationally very good. I think there are probably some matchups that are just, like, unwinnable, though. It's hard to say. I'm not super familiar with it. I'm gonna put it in the bad conversion rate tier. Honestly, I feel like I've run into this deck actually like as much as like Quick Draw and Frogs in tournaments. So there are people out there playing it. It just like never tops. So I'm sorry to all you Flambeau enjoyers, including myself, who is a Flambeau enjoyer, but I can't really justify putting it higher than here. So yeah. Disaster Dragons. I would have put it here, but it just topped an event, so I am forced to move it up to here. Okay, wait, let's look at the deck first. So I'm doing things out of order now. This deck, I think Zyko or Ace of Spades in Discord, he played this at the latest tournament, Deck Devastators 3. Got second place, so very impressive run. That being said, that is the only showing that this deck has had in the entire like past year. I think this deck has like major issues with like Frogs and other such matchups. I think that it just feels like Future Fusion or bust. Like, what are you doing if you don't see Future Fusion in here? I just don't even know. I think that it is like by far worse than the other Dragon deck, which is Turbo. Please, Keegan, if you're watching this, don't hate me for saying this, but I just don't think this deck is very good. So I'm gonna put it in mid. I just think this deck sucks. I don't know. Norlaris, Hopeless Dragon, whatever. I can't put it in Never Tops because it actually topped Ribbit 1, but it's going down here. Man, I gotta stop doing the shit out of order, man. What the hell? So another Dragon deck. Okay, I called Disaster Dragon the worst Dragon deck, but actually this is the worst Dragon deck. This is just like the definitive high roll sack deck of the format, which if you play over a large number of games will just brick most of the time. So yeah, I mean, if you do the combo, you'll probably win, but eventually you're going to reach the point with this deck where you realize that you're not doing the combo nearly enough, and you would be better off playing something else. So I think everyone pretty much hates this deck. I certainly hate it a lot. Much worse than Turbo, in my opinion, even though the deck pretty much sucks. So going down here, combo Frogs. I said I wasn't gonna. Well, let's look at the deck list before I rank it. Here we go. So I couldn't find Dimitri's Ribbit Rulers list, so I just used like the one that topped Beak of the Beak. But this is on like the Symbols combo, which I believe is like the optimal or at least preferred version by Frog Slicer and Dimitri. This has got to be everyone's least favorite deck, right? I mean, turns just take like 8 minutes, even if you're playing it perfectly. It does these weird infinite draw loops and whatnot. The deck has had some fringe success in the format. It topped once at Rulers, and it like bubbled a bunch of other events. So, did it top Peak of the Beak too? It made top 12 or something, which I don't know if we're considering that a top or a bubble, but yeah, I think the deck is all right. It's pretty good. You know, you really got to know your shit when you're piloting it though, or you're not doing anything with this deck. You'll probably just lose to time rules if you don't know how to play this deck like properly. Honestly, I would never show up trying to pilot this. First of all, people would hate me, but second of all, like I'm just not even vaguely confident enough to do like to learn all these combos and memorize everything. So as for where I think the deck goes, I maybe kind of hinted at it, but this is like a car path tier deck. Honestly, it is like one of these weird borderline cases where it's like, well, if you really know how to play the deck, you could top with it. But otherwise, it's probably going to play more like one of these down here. I think this is more than fair, honestly. This deck, it's not super represented. It's had some okay performances. I think this is an okay place to put it. I'll put it above KFC because it did win against me at Rulers, although that match was very close and could have gone either way. And both of these decks are a bit different than they were at that time, but around the same level, we'll say. You know, I think this is a fine position for it within the car path tier. Man, that awkward moment when the tier I just made for myself ends up being the biggest tier. How did that happen? All right, well, whatever. I'm just gonna have to live with it. We arrive at Diva Zombie. Let's go look at Diva Zombie. Because, well, actually, I have two builds here. So first we have the Beast Mode build, which is on some of this other stuff like Gale, Necro Gardna. I think it's on Burial. I don't remember if Silchus is on Burial. It's got Ill Blood even, which is a cool choice. And then we also have the Silchus build, which is on more of like the hero stuff, the Future Fusion, the third Diva, the Malleys, which are very insane in this deck. So some slight differences between this deck. I'd say maybe Beast Mode's list a little more consistent in terms of finding the starters. Silchus probably better ceiling and like crazier combo plays. Overall, I'd say they're about the same in terms of power level, by which I mean to say that they are both the best deck of the format. I like hinted earlier that maybe my thinking about Zombies versus Blackwings' best deck had changed, but actually that was total cap. Zombies are still the best deck, Diva Zombies specifically. I think I mentioned earlier that I think the Diva engine is better. I think this deck is nuts. I think it's crazy. I think it has like the highest ceiling. It has like a ceiling as high as some of these decks down here, but then also just has crazy consistency and versatility as well. So I'm of the opinion I have not changed. I think Diva Zombies are the best deck of Edison format. All right, we've got Machina. We're referring specifically to this new Machina build that's kind of emerged that plays a lot of this good stuff, like removal and mill and draw engines, along with the just like Machina packages, like your only machines. I think that this deck is pretty good. It's hard to say exactly what. There are things about it that I don't like. I don't like that it's playing all these mill cards in Pot of Avarice. I feel like there's got to be a better way to approach the deck than that. I just feel like the milling doesn't have great synergy. Like, yeah, you can send Fortress and bring it back, but like Fortress in itself being in the grave doesn't actually generate positive value for you. And like Avarice is just a brick in early hands, and you're kind of only playing it because you're playing the mill stuff, and you're only playing the mill stuff because you're playing the Avarice. It just feels kind of like a mess to me. I feel like we need to find something better to go in these slots. It's like still an imperfect deck in my opinion, but that being said, it's had some pretty good results lately. It topped twice at Deck Devastators, at Deck Devastators 3, and I don't remember what exactly it did before that. It did times 2 like top an event with it or something. So overall, I'm gonna throw this one. See, it could be higher, but it's probably got to go down here, honestly. If we get like more elaboration on this deck and it does better in the future, I could justify putting it higher. But it's only really performed well at one event so far, so it might just be like a lot of hype around this build. And like I said, there are like inherent on paper issues that I have with it. Even though it did do pretty well in practice recently, but I'm just not sure how it stacks up overall. I think it is very good. It has a good Blackwing matchup, but like, is it as good as Quick Draw or Lightsworn or KFC? I don't really think so. So I'm going to put it down here. Don't hate me, Stack, for rating this deck. I mean, this really isn't a low rate. Like, none of these are low ratings. You've got to understand. We're only looking at, like, decks that could top, right? So, I mean, this isn't a bad... Like, I'm putting it above Hero Beat and Glads and Flambeau, so this isn't to say the Machina is bad. I just don't quite think it's up here with these. Okay, Dark Gaia. Well, let's look at the Zytalis list, I guess. Where is that thing? There we go. Sorry about the... So this is the Zytalis' Dark Gaia list. I think it's pretty optimal. I think this is the best way of playing the deck. People used to, back in the day, play this like wacky OTK version with a bunch of bricks, and that deck sucks. This deck is much better. It plays like Triple Caius and Miracle Fusion and stuff. That being said, this deck quite literally has never topped. So I kind of have to put it in never tops. I just, like, if anything is going to go in this tier, I feel like I've got to put the deck that's never topped in the past year there. At least I don't think it has. Someone needs to point out to me if this deck is topped. I think it has bubbled multiple times, but I cannot think of a single time this deck is topped. Now, the representation is pretty low. But I just... Not only is this deck never topped, but I just feel like it's bad. I feel like it's boneless Diva Hero. I mean... I just don't... I'm just, like, not impressed with any of the things it does. So, yeah. I think that's fair. Okay, Sabers. Where... Sabers. End of the alphabet. Let's go down here. Here we have... I forget whose build this was. Someone got, like, 9th at Peak of the Beak or something with Sabers. I talked about it when I was going over the top decks, so... yeah, this is the list. This is kind of a weird Saber list, honestly, because it has like multiple Raikou hamsters and then only 2 Fall Troll. So maybe this is even the version I should have chosen to represent like the median Saber build or whatever. But whatever. You know what? Let's just talk about the Sabers in general. The deck can be crazy, right? It can be one of the most insane combo decks in the format, or you can just be sitting there setting monsters for like multiple turns on end. I feel like the main thing that I don't like is that this deck is really bad against Blackwings and really bad against Frogs. And I think those are 2 of like the top 3 decks in this format. And they're like half the meta, so it would be really hard for me to put this deck high. Yeah, I'm going to throw it down in mid, honestly. Is it? It's maybe better than Norlaris. Probably worse than Disaster Dragon. I mean... This deck's got, like, 1 top that I know of in the past year at Peak of the Beak, was it? I don't remember. But, like I said, fundamental issues is, like, Frogs and Blackwings just annihilate you. So, it would be hard to put a deck higher than this if, like, those 2 decks just annihilate you every time. So, yeah. Ancient Gears. Well, let's see what we're dealing with here. This is just like a pretty one-dimensional kind of try to kill them strategy. I don't remember whose list this was, so you have to forgive me. It must be kind of new because they're on Legacy and people weren't playing that before. Yeah. I mean, this is the list. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's Ancient Gears. I think it's a bad deck. Once again, Keegan, don't hate me. Yeah, I'm putting it down here. It's worse than Dragon. Is it better than Sabers? I don't even know. I feel like I'd rather play against Sabers. I'm going to put it right there. I mean, this deck just loses to everything. Loses to, anything that stops your OTK. Loses hard to Frogs. Loses hard to Cyber Dragon. Just loses hard to so many things. It folds to so many things. It's so fragile. So mid is where I'm putting it. Okay, Rescue Cats. Let's look at the cat list. I think Snack sent this to me. Okay, here it is. Couldn't find it for a sec there because it was called Saber Plants. Cursing myself with my own joke there. Anyway, this is the build Snack sent me. Basically uses the plant engine plus Rescue Cat to fill up your graveyard for Pot of Avarice and whatnot. I don't think this deck has ever topped either. That being said, I think it has potential. There's some good stuff going on in here that I like, but there's also some Potential issues, I think the Blackwing matchup is not good. You also get hard countered by like random things like Gladiator Beast. That being said, it's kind of just like a good stuff pile. Really looking at it. So where would I put this? It's just never topped. Like, that's the issue. Don't know. And like, maybe I'll put it above mid. I'll put it up in bad conversion rate, honestly. I think there's enough good stuff going on in here that I can like kind of overlook the fact that it's never topped. Just like, you got the Caius Raikos, you got like the Amaryllis and whatnot. So it's probably worse than all these other things in this tier, but I think it is versatile enough and good enough that we can put it above the mid decks. Okay, so next we got gadgets. Gadgets, this deck just sucks, right? I mean, this is like a 2010 build or something. No one plays this. The only people that play gadgets are like people who are new to the format or something. So yeah, down here. It's garbage and it never tops, so it's going to never tops. What can I say? Fire zombies. This is a deck no one plays. The reason no one plays it is because it's just strictly worse than the other zombie builds, unfortunately. That being said, it is still zombies, and zombies are really good, so I can't really put it that low, even though no one plays it and it never tops. Where? Do I dare? Do I dare put another entry in the Carpath tier? Yo, but it might be. Like, zombies are just so good. I feel like with every decline in the power of, like, the zombie co-engine, it can only really drop by, like, one tier. So, is it better than Hero B? It might be. It might be better than Hero. Let's put it here. Like, this deck's it's got a better Glad matchup, too, than regular zombies. So, yeah, I think this is more than fair. I think the main reason that this deck never tops is because no one plays it, and no one plays it because these other zombie builds are just obviously better, but it is still a zombie build, and zombies are still good, so, like, yeah, it's going up here. Wow, the Carpath tier is the biggest tier. What a freaking joke, man. All right, whatever. I think it's the right place to put it, though, honestly. Just, like, compare to these other decks, it seems right, so, yeah. Fish. We all know where Fish is going. This is James Ark's build. He stopped playing it like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it hasn't done anything noteworthy since, so you're going down in the garbage bin, Fish deck. I'm sorry, but it's where you belong. Next up, we got Chainburn. This is Frog Slicer's list from the 1K tourney in the Edison format Discord, which has like 7K members now, so that should tell you how long ago that was. Yeah, this deck hasn't done anything noteworthy either. Is it worse than Fish? Maybe it's better than Fish. I don't know. This bottom part just isn't in any particular order. Just like assume this is the crap tier, okay? So yeah, one last look at the deck list here since I didn't look at it too long, but it's Chainburn. I think a lot more people are on this like, what's the card called? There's a trap card that like ends the battle phase by sending a card you control to the graveyard, so you can just like chain your stuff and then send one of them mid-chain. So that's definitely very beneficial for the deck, and it is in here. But that being said, this deck still hasn't done anything, and I think Burn just sucks. So we're putting it in the bottom tier. Okay, Gravekeeper. Stun is just terrible in Edison format. This was the only list I could find online that I could like actually press the download button on. Yeah, this deck just sucks. Don't play Stun in Edison format; it won't go well. Is it better? It's maybe better than this other stuff. It's probably worse than Dark Gaia. Dark Gaia probably just like summons Caius and beats Gravekeeper. Yeah, this like Necro Valley is so bad in Edison format too. It doesn't stop anything. Like the later erratas stop a little bit more, and then like the modern erratas stop like everything. But in Edison, it doesn't even stop like Red Mid or Rekindling or anything like that. So frankly, this deck just sucks. Finally, we arrive last but definitely not least, we have Frogs. So there are multiple Frog decks in here. Let's look at First, there's Junk Frog. This is Corinna's list from Peak of the Beak, or Peak of the Beak. It's from Deck Devastators 3. So Junk Synchron really broke this deck, in my opinion. Just like adding another layer on top of what was already there, which was already another layer on top of Standard Frog Monarchs, really put this deck over the top. I think this is a top tier deck, absolutely for sure. I'm going to throw it in S tier. Frogs just feel crazy to me. I even think they're above Blackwings. I think that's a debatable point. I'm not as like sure about them as I am about Diva Zombies being the best, but I think this deck just does so many really cool things. Just very, very powerful deck. There's another build, by the way. In terms of frogs, we're talking about both, like just any build with Junk Synchron pretty much, but like Hero Frog 2, I think belongs in this same position in S tier. Both these decks, I think, just about the same level. I think that modern frog builds are really, really, really good. They're definitely scary to play against. They just blow out a huge portion of the decks in the meta. And pre-board, they're probably the best deck, like, honestly. Maybe not. Maybe that's cap. But I think frogs deserve to be very high. I'm putting them second in S tier, or constantly tops. You get the point. But, yeah, okay. So we have completed the tier list. Looking it over at the very end, everything looks like about fair to me. If you disagree, be sure to let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. I've decided I'm going to limit myself to like one tier list per month. I think that's more than reasonable. So yeah, hopefully not doing another one of these for a little bit. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Nevertheless, people do always like to watch these for some reason. So I mean, yeah, peace out.